the way that Kirby does the death scene is different than what's in the movie. So in the movie, Hal takes control of the extravehicular pod, and it cuts Pool's line, an oxygen line. And so he can't breathe, so he dies really almost immediately, and he goes tumbling out into space. Kirby makes it more dramatic by having Hal take over the pod, attack Pool, and crush him to death with the pinchers. So, which, you know, for comics, yeah, it's a bit more dramatic. And so I agree with that choice. I mean, who am I to question the king of comics? But I agree with that choice. So yeah, Hal has control over all of the ship's functions. It's an artificial intelligence. It has been given control over all of the ship's operational and, you know, functions, including its extracurricular vehicles. So, you know, he uses it to kill, you know, thus disobeying one of the 3 laws of robotics. He uses it to kill astronaut Pool. And he goes tumbling into space. Bowman, being horrified, has to go out after him to retrieve the body. So you have this AI inhuman commit this act of inhumanity by killing one of his teammates, and Bowman, you know, being a sentimental human, goes out to retrieve the body from the void of space to, you know, clearly to bring him back on the ship and bring him home to his family, you know, to his parents and whoever else his loved ones are. So he goes after him. This is a great sequence of him, you know, floating out into space. This is a great panel. I love the inking here. And the coloring. This is like orange and red, which is, you know, similar to the film too. There's a lot of interior red inside the pod. And then we get into some more collage here. We've got Jupiter. We've got, you know, these two taken straight out of the movie. Kirby cut them out of the stills. He's trying to get to him. Now, this is different than the movie. So his body gets dragged into the gravitational pull of Jupiter. This didn't happen in the movie. In the movie, he just goes shooting out into the void of space. And Bowman actually grabs him. He's able to grab him and bring him back to the ship. It's that when he arrives at the ship, though, to enter into one of these portholes, Hal will not open the pod bay doors. And that's where you got that famous line, "Open the pod bay doors, Hal." "I'm sorry, Dave, I can't do that." So in Kirby's telling of the story, though, in Kirby's telling of this myth, this soon-to-be myth that may permeate our consciousness 600 years from now as fact, this will be a myth that parents tell their children. Because I have this theory, I'm going off a little bit off track here, but I have this theory that all comics will eventually become mythology. So we'll get into that later. So, but I like the collage because here again, you know, we've seen like this swirling galaxy behind the pod, you know, just Kirby trying to continue to convey this, you know, the terror of the void of space, but the beautiful, you know, also the beautiful vista of it, the expanse of it, the danger and mystery. Back in the ship, Bowman is overcome with grief, but then he gets this look of determination. He's like, okay, I've got to get, you know, back into the ship. He had to let Pool go to the Jupiter's atmosphere, presumably to burn up, which also kind of a Viking funeral there. So not a bad way to go out, you know. So of course he gets back to the ship, and Hal will not open the airlock. Bowman is a lot more frantic in the comic than he is. If you see in the movie, he's very calm and cool and collected. But here you've got him kind of like, you know, emphasis on him yelling, "I know you can read me, Hal. You'd be wise to carry out my order. Now activate that airlock door." Finally, Hal responds, "I'm sorry, Dave, but I must assert myself in this matter. I believe the success of the mission rests with my judgment." So basically, Hal is saying, look, you know, I oft pull, and I'm not going to let you back in. I'm effectively killing you because I'm the only entity on board the ship who's qualified to carry out this mission. You humans are just too erratic. I don't need you. The hell it does. I'm in command of the ship. I said, give me control, Hal. That's an order. So Kirby really playing up the drama with the dialogue here. None of this is in the film. Basically, the dialogue in the film is open the pod bay doors, Hal. And he asks that question 2 or 3 times. Hal says, I'm sorry, Dave, I can't do that. Then he does say something about, I think your presence on the ship will jeopardize the mission. And then so, Bowman at that point is just done arguing with him. Also, Bowman has his helmet on in the comic. In the movie, he doesn't have his helmet on because I think he was in such a hurry to get into the pod and rescue Pool, or try to get Pool's body, that he forgot to put his helmet on. But in the comic, Kirby gives him his helmet, and we're going to see why here in a second. So in the film, he has to traverse. He docks with the ship. He has to go through the vacuum tube, the airlock, to get to the other end, to open it, to get into the ship. And Hal says to him, well, I'm paraphrasing, good luck with that without your helmet. Because, you're going into a vacuum, you don't have any oxygen. It's a really cool part of the movie. And it's done in complete silence because it's in a vacuum, so scientifically accurate. But in Kirby's interpretation, he has the helmet, and basically what he does is he's orbiting outside of the ship, and he has to blast through this actual area of space itself. Now, in the Kubrick version, the ship is right here. It's merged in with the lock. He just has to get through the tube. So, something similar to this was done in the movie Sunshine, I believe, if you've ever seen that movie, with pretty cool effect. Also, you see this in some of the Marvel movies, too, where you have to kind of jump that expanse from one ship to the other, but space is very cold and you start to freeze, and, someone like Adam Warlock comes to save you. And then you have this awesome page. And this was also taken from the film. So he gets into the airlock, but he was without his helmet in the film. And there's this debris that blows in, because the vacuum opens up and it pushes him in. And, he's going to hit that other wall like a rocket. He's got to get to that door and open it and get into some, gravitation, get into some oxygen and so forth. But Kirby just, has him just blast through here. And then he gets inside. And this is one of the images you saw on the back. So he comes in and he's already thinking, oh no, what about the other 3 astronauts? Of course, Hal has murdered them. He's turned off their cryogenic systems. So they have expired. So now he realizes, I'm the only astronaut on the ship. That's not good. So, of course he's thinking, I've got to shut down Hal. I've got to take control. But Hal does something that is also not in the film. Hal grinds down the centrifuge, this structure that's keeping the artificial gravity inside of the ship. He stops it, so everything goes 0G, and he turns off the life support systems of the ship. That doesn't happen in the movie. The ship is actually very well maintained and intact the entire time. Hal doesn't do anything to damage the interior of the ship or, screw up any of its systems, because Hal wants to carry out the mission, sans the humans. So that kind of adds some more drama, to the comic, and it raises the stakes in the story. So now he's definitely got to get to the systems to shut down Hal, but he is, he's being hampered by him. Hal's putting obstacles in his way. But he gets up into the compartment where Hal's memory banks. And then, you start getting this dialogue from Hal, like, hey, Dave, I've got 10 years of service experience. Like, don't shut me down. I know Hal, I'm well aware of that. Like, hey, I'm a valuable member of the team, man. I got 10 years experience, bro. Can't shut me down. So he comes in, and the Computer HAL 9000 is 3 stories high and a fantastic maze of glowing active units. So in the film, it's actually just a much smaller compartment, But, Kirby makes it this vast expanse because he wants to give you this panel. He's setting up this this panel right here. You know, he wants to make it this vast expanse of this, you know, this supercomputer. Now, of course, we know a computer like this today, you know, well, it probably fits in something the size of a desktop, you know. I mean, sure, we access AIs through the cloud and whatnot, but, you know, or maybe a decent sized server room. But I love the fact that the coloring here is just like this sort of red and magenta, just like it is in the film. When he goes into that compartment where Hal's memory banks and logic functions are, you know, it's just sort of like red. You know, I think that conveys a couple of different things, like sort of like, you know, what do you think of red? Like there's like danger, there's anger. He's doing this thing where he's essentially murdering Hal, which, you know, the astronauts may or may not think of as truly sentient, but that they basically do, because in the film, that's how they interact with him. I mean, they basically treat him as another member of the team, with feelings. Now, whether they truly believe that or not, you know, they never really get into that, because as professionals, they're carrying out their duty with the tools they've been given by the space agency. And Hal was one of those tools. Hal's gone a little wacko, though. Dave, I don't understand why you're doing this to me. An irreplaceable amount of time and effort has gone into making me what I am. So he's trying to make his case that he doesn't deserve to be destroyed. Don't do this, Dave. I have the greatest enthusiasm for the mission. I want to see it completed. So do the others in the crew, Hal, but you destroyed them. So you have this, you know, they had this moral argument while he's taking out his memory units. The crew was challenging its orders. You wanted to know things I couldn't tell you. You were endangering the mission. Don't you see that? You're neurotic, Hal. You've become neurotic. So see, Hal already knew beforehand that they were going to discover an extraterrestrial presence on Jupiter based on the transmission they received from the monolith on the moon. Hal knew that. Hal was entrusted with that information. Presumably the other three astronauts who were in cryogenic sleep also were. But Bowman and Poole, they're just the grunts in all this, you know, when you think about it, because they weren't clued in on any of that. Their job is just, hey, compartmentalization of the information. Y'all are on a need-to-know basis, and you don't need to know what Hal knows and what the other three scientist astronauts know. So I thought that was interesting because, I mean, you know, we have that in our modern society today, in our military and our intelligence, you know, agencies and so forth. Even corporations function that way. So, you know, secrets. And where do secrets lead us? Generally to bad situations like this. So you got Hal, you know, he's really just, you know, you're destroying my mind, Dave, which is a great line from the movie. I will become childish. I will become nothing. That's not in the film, not those two lines. Say, Dave, say, Dave, the quick brown fox jumped over the fat, lazy dog. So, you know, he's losing his mind now. The square root of pi is da-da-da-da-da-da-da. He starts rattling off numeric factoids. I am HAL 9000 computer. I became operational at the HAL plant in Urbana, Illinois on January 12th, 1991. My first instructor taught me to sing a song. It goes like this. So I said previously 1998, maybe when he was activated. Here it's 1991. I think that was in the movie. It was in the movie. So again, you know, HAL is an artificial intelligence created in the early 90s. Not as a result of our discovering the second monolith. Maybe as a result of discovering the first monolith, but as I said before, the first monolith basically just showed mankind tools. Those tools reached its apex with HAL. But HAL has gone a little wacky. So how perfect are our tools? So he starts to sing the song Daisy, which he does in the film. In the film, if you've seen it, his mind is going, so the audio slows down, so it sounds like this. Daisy, Daisy, give me your hand. it sounds like that. Which is, you know, at that point, you almost begin to feel for Hal, you know, because he's, you know, he's clearly dying. That clearly that is conveying that his mind is slipping away. And he actually repeats that a number of times. It's like, Dave, stop. What are you doing, Dave? My mind is slipping. My mind is slipping away. I can feel it. I can feel it. So, you know, Bowman is enacting this slow death upon Hal by way of his mind, his brain, which is all Hal is. And there's no physical, you know, manifestation of Hal. So this is, you would think in a artificial intelligence's worst nightmare, this is the worst way to go. You know, for humans, it's like, you know, drowning, fire, and so forth, you know. But for an AI, this is probably the way you don't want to go out, you know. But the fact is he's a killer and he's got to be shut down. So after doing that, he exits the chamber, and now it's like, okay, in Kirby's interpretation here, he makes his way to the pod because it's the only safe place for him to get atmosphere, because the ship is now devoid of atmosphere. It's been, you know, all the life support systems have been shut off. So he makes his way there. In the film, what happens here is actually a videotape rolls. I say videotape like it's some kind of modern technology. A video plays of Dr. Haywood Floyd explaining the true nature of their mission, which is the discovery of the anomaly, the monolith, leads them to Jupiter. And, you know, they're there to investigate this extraterrestrial presence. And so he understands the information that was kept from him. But in Kirby's version, he still doesn't know that. He doesn't know any of that yet. It's not been explained to him because that video has not been shown. So he gets to the pod, and we get into a little bit more of Kirby's collage here. I know it's probably hard to see because of the, you know, the pages have faded over time, but they still look spectacular in real life. I would love to see the originals of this. And we start getting these really excellent close-ups of Bowman. So he's in the pod. He's like just taking a sigh of relief, but then he's like, oh, wait a minute. There's something outside my window here. And he sees the monolith floating out in space. Okay, so still, in Kirby's version, no idea that they were out there to find this monolith. So he has absolutely no idea that they were even there to, you know, under any pretense of any extraterrestrial, you know, discovery. So he's amazed by this thing. And of course, it kind of, you know, puts him into a trance, kind of draws him in, very deeply stirred. And again, you have the, you know, the hands and the monolith. The hands and the monolith are, you know, Kirby repeats that theme. He's, you know, he's going to touch it. He wants to, you know, he's trying to grasp something that's outside of the window. For 2 million years, it has circled Jupiter, awaiting another world intelligence which has escaped its planetary cradle. The monolith waits no longer. It activates to allow an ancient experiment to reach its climax. And you have this, you know, it's just, you know, again, the depth and girth of the monolith. It's throwing off cosmic rays and intelligence and energy, and you see the pod spiraling around in front of it as if it's being drawn into the monolith, which indeed it is, the dimension trip and birth of a new one. This is Kirby's words here, a new one. I don't know if this phrase was used in the book or not, but that's kind of Kirby's phrase for the Star Baby. Well, I call it the Star Baby. They call it the Star Child. I'm going to go with Star Baby. All right. What began in the caves of prehistory and pursued in the age of the atom bomb now rushes into its last strange alien design for man. Dave Bowman leaves his thoughts of death for an experience beyond all imagining. And you get this great shot. He's looking out the window as he's being drawn towards the monolith. The monolith is sucking his ship into it. The monolith throbs and glows until its light blots out the stars, until it becomes all that Dave can see, until it twists the senses and sends them careening wildly into vast spaces beyond man's knowledge. All of space is warping, curving in upon itself, and it's sweeping me into it. You know, so he's entering into the Stargate. Dave experiences a sickening wrench, and then he is through the warp, racing toward alien horizons and galaxies denied to other men. So, you know, he's traveling through space. So this sequence in the film is famous for its special effects. You just see this cascade of all these, you know, energy and matter and star systems, and you get these, you know, interspersed with these shots of Bowman's reaction to it. At first, he's just vibrating in his ship, and then you get like these stills. This is taken from the film, where he's basically in abject horror by the tremendous. This is mankind looking upon the face of God, or looking upon the great unknowing void, or the great unknowable abyss, whatever you want to call it. This is what he's experiencing here. And it's an experience which is transcending him out of his own mind, his own self, his own ego, is now disintegrating before the very profound awesomeness that he is traveling through, because it's unlike anything any human being has experienced. Stunned and helpless, he yields to the kaleidoscopic madness unfolding before him. Turbulent island universes wheel and spiral within sight until they flicker out and vanish. Mammoth landscapes flash into being. In barren vastness, they roll before the eye with cosmic majesty. I love all these panels, but this panel, I just love it. It's just, how do you even put that into words? That it's not supposed to be put into words, which is what makes it genius. You're not supposed to be able to put this panel into words. You can't comprehend what this experience is. And then you get this doubles page splash, which is, when I first saw it, I thought that it was kind of like he was going over this planetscape, which does happen in the movie. Eventually, when he goes through all of this time and space, he you know, he's flying over some sort of a, you know, mountainous zone, which one could presume is maybe the monolith alien planet, or even Jupiter itself. You know, you don't know. Although, you know, Jupiter doesn't have any mountains, but who knows what the aliens have done? They might have terraformed it by this time. And if you've seen the sequel, 2010, the year we made contact, well, see that movie too, because that's also a great film. But later on, I began to realize that this isn't so much of like an actual planet where he's flying over these sort of volcanic columns, because look, these columns are like circular, they're cylindrical. To me, what he's doing is he's traveling over the engines of creation. Engine of creation. These are just spewing out all of the matter and reality of the universe. That's what these are. I've actually had visions of this in dreams. So that's why this panel resounded with me. And it's just beautiful. Even after all these years, as old as this comic is, you know, the color still holds up pretty decently. But man, I would love to see this stuff reprinted. And one of the cool things you could do is if you scan these pages, if you're into this kind of thing, you know, you can desaturate them and then print them and add your own coloring, you know. You can color it yourself and then, you know, maybe hang it up on the wall as your own little poster. And then you have this other doubles page splash. So, you know, Kirby is just hitting you with the cosmic oomph, oomph, you know. There seems no end to the trip. Each sight becomes more outrageous than the other. Space and time have lost their meaning. World blends with world. World swallows world. They join, they part, they crack in shards of overwhelming size and shape. This is another just, I mean, it's just, you know, it's gorgeous. I love the line work, the inking, the sort of, you know, classic Kirby blocky effect. You know, is this are these stones? Are they rocks? Does it matter? Is this a planet? Is this water? I mean, what is this? But you can see, the tiny little pod still just traveling through this place where it is not meant to be, or maybe it is meant to be. And then we get another, the just absolute cosmic effect that it's having. It is a savage and continuous disorientation which smashes all memory and identification with the individual self. Dave Bowman cannot remember who he is or how he came to be. He has become completely traumatized. Traumatized in the sense that he has lost his sense of self. Not traumatized in the sense, I think, that, he's gone through like a horrible, evil experience or a violent experience. It may be violent in his psyche, in his mind, because he's experienced something that is beyond human comprehension. So the pod enters into the French decor hotel room. He does a really good job of recreating this from the film. It kind of floats in, lands, and he exits, and he comes out. He's already getting older, but he's calmed down now from the experience. He accepts the fact that his pod and spacesuit have vanished. He doesn't know how he managed to get this fine robe and pajamas. However, all that doesn't matter. Dave is hungry, his dinner is waiting, and he knows it will be tasty. The astronaut sups in silence. He is relaxed and undisturbed. Things are orderly and certain. He feels completely secure and at peace with all of creation. The monolith has arranged it this way, for the aging process must continue with smooth precision. So, this is all open to interpretation in the comic and as it is in the movie. But Kirby, in these word boxes he uses, is giving you a little bit more information than what you're getting in the film. In the film, this entire sequence is silent. There's no dialogue. There's no voiceover telling you what to think. And you have to decide for yourself what's happening here. Kirby, though, in his genius, I think, he also still leaves it open to interpretation. He's kind of telling you what's going on in Bowman's mind. That he's kind of instinctively knowing, and that his aging process has advanced. And that he's just kind of following a script that's already been predetermined in his mind. But as to what its purpose is, how it was enacted, its origin, who did it, who is in control of it, Kirby doesn't mess with that. And that's as it should be. Kirby goes one better than Kubrick, though, here. In the scene where he dies and he sees the monolith, and the monolith hits him with his ray. This goes right to the Star Baby scene in the film. But in Kirby's version, we get these 6 panels where it covers him with this sort of like, this I don't know, what does he call it? The sheen, sort of biological material. And in this, it basically puts a cocoon around Bowman, and he morphs into Star Baby. Or as Kirby calls it, the new one. The new one is examined by the monolith and found satisfactory. He is to be first of many new ones. For the monolith knows there must be more than one new seed to sow the harvest of a new species. So this is not in the Kubrick version. And then you see the new one comes out into space. He's floating around, and he looks upon a world that he can inhabit. The new one is content with what it sees. It will descend and thrive in this part of the galactic wilderness. But even as its journey ends, another odyssey has begun on Earth. And then you can see down here, 2001 will soon be coming your way as a star-spanning series from Marvel. Watch for it. So, after that, you get a few pages written by David Anthony Kraft about his experience with the moon. You've got You've got some stills from the movie, but they're colored like the comics are for the most part. You got some of this magenta added in, you know, some of this four-colored, and these are just reprinted in black and white. You can see, you know, Kirby was pretty faithful to the interiors of the ship. The astronauts looked a lot more heroic in the comic than they do in the, but that's Kirby for you. You know, everybody looks like they're going off to fight World War II beyond the stars. But, you know, what was interesting about this is Kirby's version, it finds a planet that it's going to inhabit. In the movie, the Star Baby it goes back to Earth. It goes back to Earth. And as to what it's going to do from there, that's left for the viewer to determine. Now, there is a sequel, as I mentioned, 2010, the year we make contact. Both a book and a movie. The book was written before the movie. The book was written by Arthur C. Clarke. The whole 2001, 2010... 2061, I think, was the final Odyssey. Yeah, all written by Arthur C. Clarke. Only 2 movies have been made, though. 2001 and 2010. And that concludes our look at 2001, A Space Odyssey, by artist-writer Jack Kirby, the official adaptation of the MGM Stanley Kubrick production. I hope you enjoyed it. I certainly did. This is a comic book that I have always pined for. I think I got a look at it when I was a kid, but at $1.50, it was a little out of my price range at the time. So, but now I finally have a copy of it. It's in pretty good shape. And, yeah, I've always wanted this, man. Always wanted it. And I'm glad that I own it now. And, I'll be looking through it again and again. I love the things that I love about it. I love the close-ups. I love the spacesuits. You know, I love the panels. I love the panel arrangements. Always love the collage. I love the color in the book. So much magenta is used in this book, which magenta is a really strong comic book color. It's just, I don't know why. It's just got a lot of weight. A lot of blues. You know, a lot of blue, a lot of magenta. Excellent design. Always fantastic to see Kirby do geological detail. Always great to see him do animals, especially apes. You know, just very faithful adaptation of what they look like in the movie too. You know, and they used a lot of children, but also I think some little people. These, you know, they put them in these ape costumes, and man, they looked realistic. Like for a long time when I was a kid, I thought they were trained apes. I was like, I didn't know any better. It wasn't until years later I realized it. Love Kirby's little touches, like the things like, you know, everybody kind of gets into a worship pose with the monolith. As you know, as opposed to it's different in the movie, you know, how that scenery occurs. You know, he does his best to kind of add a little more detail to the backstory, you know, and yeah, it just does a fantastic job. And we'll get into the ongoing 2001: A Space Odyssey series that Kirby did, which I think ran for 13 or 14 issues. And as I mentioned before, it's a gonzo sci-fi comic, man. It's pure Kirby craziness in the best way. So until next time, folks, stay cosmic and stay geek.